It was a chilly November evening in Chicago. The wind carried a sharp bite, and the city lights flickered like distant stars fighting against the darkness. On an old wooden park bench worn by time and weather sat Ethan Miller. His thin jacket did little to guard him against the cold. His eyes, once full of dreams, now stared blankly at the empty streets, reflecting nothing but the ache of loss. Ethan was not always like this. Just a year ago, he had a small apartment, a steady job at a local cafe, and someone who made life feel less heavy, his younger sister Lily. She was his anchor, the only family he had left after their parents passed away in a car accident when Ethan was just 19. Life had been tough, but together they found ways to laugh, to dream, to survive. But life has a cruel way of changing in the blink of an eye. It was supposed to be an ordinary day. Ethan had promised to pick up Lily after her part time job, but he was late, stuck within extra hours at the cafe. When he finally got there, all he found was flashing red and blue lights, a crowd together, and his world shattered. A drunk driver had hit Lily as she crossed the street. She did not make it. Ethan's life unraveled. The guilt consumed him. If only I had left work earlier. The apartment felt empty. The walls whispered memories he could not bear to hear. Bills piled up, grief turned into depression, and soon he lost his job. He packed a small bag, unable to face the ghost of his old life, and found himself on that cold park bench, day after day, with nothing but regrets and a photo of Lily tucked in his jacket pocket. Weeks passed. Ethan felt invisible, just another face among the city's forgotten souls. People walked by without a glance. He would watch happy families, couples laughing, friends sharing coffee, and it hurt. The loneliness was louder than the city's noise. On his 30th birthday, Ethan sat alone, staring at the skyline, wondering if his life even mattered. But life, even when cruel, has a strange way of offering silvers of hope. One evening, an old man named George, a retired veteran with kind eyes, noticed Ethan. He did not offer pity, just a simple cup of hot coffee. They sat in silence, sipping quietly. That small act broke something inside Ethan, not in a bad way, but like the first crack in ice before it melts. George came back the next day, and the next. They did not talk much at first, just shared the quiet. Slowly, Ethan opened up about Lily, the guilt, the job he lost, the life he could not piece back together. George listened, really listened, without trying to fix him. One day, George said something simple yet powerful. Son, the fact that you are still here means your story is not over yet. Those words lingered. George shared his own struggles, how he had lost friends in war, battled with PTSD, and spent years feeling like a ghost in his own life. But he found purpose again by helping others, even in small ways. Inspired, Ethan decided to try, just try. The next morning, Ethan picked up trash around the park. It was not much, but it was something. He felt a tiny spark purpose. Days turned into weeks. George encouraged him to visit a local community center that helped people get back on their feet. Ethan was scared. What if he failed again? But he went. At the center, he met Maria, a counselor with a fierce belief in second chances. She did not sugarcoat things. She told Ethan it would be hard, that healing was not a straight path, But she also said, your pain is not the end of your story. It is part of it. But you get to decide what comes next. Ethan found small jobs, cleaning, helping at the community garden. He saved every penny. He still carried Lily's photo, not as a reminder of loss, but as a silent promise. I will make you proud. One day, while helping George fix an old bench, Ethan had an idea. What if he started a small business fixing and restoring furniture? It seemed silly at first. He had no money, no formal skills, but George believed in him, and sometimes that's enough to start. Ethan watched YouTube videos, read free online guides, and practiced with discarded furniture from LA's. He sold his first piece, a simple wooden chair, for $20. It felt like $1 million. He named his small venture Second Chances because that's what it gave him. Business grew slowly. Word spread. People loved his work, not just for the craftsmanship, but for the story behind it. Each piece had a past, just like him, but with care and effort, it became something beautiful again. Years later, Ethan stood in his own little workshop, surrounded by restored tables, chairs, and shelves. A framed photo of Lily hung on the wall. He was not rich, but he was whole. He often returned to that park bench not as a lost soul, but to offer coffee to someone who might need it, just like George did for him. Eden's story is not just about success, it is about grief, guilt, loneliness, and the courage to face them. It is about how the smallest kindness can change a life. And it is a reminder that even when life breaks you, you can build something beautiful from the peace. Because sometimes from the coldest park bench, a business and a life can bloom. As Ethan's business grew, so did his understanding of the world around him. There were days when he felt like everything was falling apart again, when clients cancelled orders, or when the bills piled up higher than the work he could manage. But he held on to the lessons that George had taught him. He focused on one thing at a time, one step forward. One evening, after a particularly hard day of repairs and dealing with the late payments, Ethan sat in his small office, surrounded by old wood, sandpaper, and tools. The workbench was cluttered with unfinished projects. The night outside was cold, but the warmth of shop filled him with a sense of peace. It was not much, but it was his. The business was not just about fixing furniture anymore, it was about restoring his soul, piece by piece. A few months passed, and Ethan began to feel something unexpected hope. Not the kind that was fleeting or shallow, but the kind that grew strong and steady. He began to notice the small victories, a piece of furniture sold to a grateful family, a friend showing up to help him on weekends, and even the shy smile of a regular customer who appreciated his work. One of those customers, Carla, was an older woman who lived in the neighborhood. She came in one day with a broken dining table, apologizing for the mess it had become. Her voice cracked with embarrassment, and she explained how her husband had passed away 2 years ago. She had not had the heart to fix anything in the house since. Ethan agreed to take the table, though it was in much worse condition than he initially thought. It took him hours of sanding, carving, and polishing to restore it. By the time he finished, the table looked brand new. But more importantly, it held a memory of resilience. When Carla picked it up, her eyes filled with tears. She told him that the table had been in her family for generations, and it had always sat at the center of their meals together. You gave me something more than a repair table, she said softly. You gave me a chance to hold onto the past, but also to move forward. Thank you. Ethan smiled as she left, knowing that it was not just the furniture he was restoring. It was people's stories, their memories, and in turn, he was piecing together the broken parts of his own story. But even as he grew stronger, the pain of losing Lily never fully went away. There were moments when he would find himself staring at an old photo of her, or catch himself wishing he could tell her about his success. He wished she could have seen how far he had come. One rainy afternoon, while delivering a large oak bookshelf to a client, Ethan received a call. It was from Maria, the counselor who had once given him so much hope. Ethan, she said, her voice gentle but urgent, I think you should come down to the community center. We are starting a program for people who have turned their lives around, and I think you would be a perfect mentor. People need to hear your story. Eden was taken aback. A mentor? He had barely managed to pick himself up, let alone guide others. But something in Maria's voice made him agree. When he arrived at the community center, he was greeted by a group of people who were in various stages of struggle. Some had lost their homes, others their jobs, and some had lost hope altogether. But there was a spark in their eyes, a desire to change, even if they did not know how. Ethan stood before them, his heart pounding. He was not sure what to say, but he knew one thing. He could not let them feel the way he had when he was sitting alone on that park bench. He began to share his story, starting with the pain, the guilt, and the despair. He did not sugarcoat it. He told them about the loss of his sister, the darkness that had consumed him, and how he thought he would never be able to move forward. And then he told them how, little by little, he had started to rebuild his life. He did not have all the news answers, but he had learned that healing was not a straight line. It was messy, it was slow, but it was possible. As the weeks went by, Ethan became a regular at the center, offering guidance, encouragement, and even job opportunities to those in need. He started to build a small network of people who were also trying to rebuild their lives, just as he had. Together, they created a support system, one that did not judge, but lifted each other up. And then, one day, as Ethan was leaving the center, he saw a young woman sitting alone on a bench, her head down, tears streaming down her face. He recognized the look. He had worn it too many times. He sat next to her, offering a silent, understanding presence. After a few moments, she looked up, startled but grateful. I don't know what to do anymore, she said. I lost my job, my boyfriend. Now I don't even know who I am. Ethan smiled gently, remembering the moments when he felt the same way. It's okay, he said softly. I have been there too, but I promise you, this is not the end of your story. It is just the beginning. That evening, as Ethan stood in front of his small shop, looking at the growing number of restored pieces of furniture in the window, he realized something profound. His business had never been just about fixing old wood. It had always been about healing, both for himself and for others. He had taken his pain, his grief, and his loss and turned it into something beautiful, something that could help others. Life had taken Ethan through a whirlwind of heartbreak, loneliness, and loss, but in the end, it had gifted him something he never expected, a purpose. He had found a way to heal, to move forward, and to help others do the same. As he walked home that night, he paused by the park bench where it all began. He sat down just for a moment and smiled. Lily, he whispered to the wind. I did it. We did it.